What's up, everybody? It's your favorite show, Get a Bucket. I'm your host, Trey, and as usual, hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful day. Today, we're going to talk about the WNBA fantasy rankings, right? ESPN dropped this list. It's not mine, but I am curious what y'all think about it. I got my own takes and gripes about it, but I ain't going to talk about everyone listed. I'm looking at 50 players. We're going to talk about the teams. But before we talk about the teams, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Please comment and tell anyone about the show. I'm trying to get the ratings up a little bit, just a little bit. But again, we're talking about the WNBA teams, and there are 13 teams now. Shout out to the Golden State Valkyries, right? For up in the WNBA roster or team count. So I said there's 13. I'm not going to talk about every single squad. At least I'll try not to. I am a WNBA fan, so I could accidentally talk about them, and I quite easily actually. But I'm at least talk about the top 5 WNBA teams that have the most WNBA fantasy ranked players. I'll mention the other ones as well because some of them are surprising, but I'll talk about the top 5s. So with that, though, I just want to talk about the 6 through 13 teams. I just mentioned them real brief. In order, we have the number 13 team, Golden State Valkyries, right? They had one player in the top 50. Connecticut Sun at 12, they had 3 players in the top 50. One player in the top 20. I want to note that. Dallas Wings, number 11. They have 3 players also, but 1 player in the top 6. The Seattle Storm, surprisingly, have 3 players as well. They're 3 players in the top 25. The Phoenix Mercury, have 3 players as well. A lot of teams have 3 players. That's good to know. They're 3 players in the top 15. The Minnesota Lynx, they have 3 players. They have 1 player in the top 5. Shout out Nafisa Collier. We have the Washington Mystics, higher than the Minnesota Lynx. Okay. They have 4 players, and their players in the top 50, right? In between 30 and 50. And then we have the Chicago Sky at number 6. They have 4 players as well in the top 50, and one of their players in the top 15. Shout out Angel Reese. So you heard the listing from 6 through 13. Some of those teams are very surprising. For example, the Seattle Storm, I wasn't expecting them to be that low. The Phoenix Mercury, I did it again. That's crazy. The Phoenix Mercury, I would expect a little higher, but okay, I understand it. The Seattle Storm was definitely surprising to me. I'm not going to lie to you. Golden State Valkyrie, if anybody was surprised, I would be dumbfounded. You just weren't watching basketball then, I guess. This is their first season started. But a team like the Storm, they boast Nneka, Ogwumike, Skylar, Diggins-Smith, and Ezi Magbagor. Now, I understand they lost Jewel Lloyd, but you also have a couple of players as well to throw in here. Now, the top 50, it might be tough to crack, so that's why I guess I can understand it. It's just tough to hear. It's tough to read. But again, though, those are the top 6 through 13 teams, end of day. So y'all may be wondering, who's top 5? Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start it off with the 15. And that's the Las Vegas Aces. They have 4 players in the top 50 and 2 in the top 10. Now, keep in mind, Asia Wilson is rated number 1 in fantasy rankings, right? Then you got Jewel Lloyd, who's number 9 in fantasy rankings. Like, that's pretty good. That's pretty good, okay? We also know they got Jackie Young and Chelsea Gray, too. This is a championship team. Everybody on this, at least everyone that I've listed or stated, has won a championship. So that's nothing to scoff at. So from a fantasy perspective, also coupled with reality, the Las Vegas Aces, they do on paper seem to be like a formidable squad. I am curious where the shooting, the 3-point shooting specifically, is going to come from. I know Chelsea Gray can shoot. I know Jackie Young can shoot it. She did all right last year. Jewel's not the best shooter, but again, because of the spacing, maybe now she can attack more. I want to see more efficiency from Jewel. But again, the Las Vegas Aces, they do seem promising, like really promising. I gotta think. Should I put money on them? I don't know, but based off the fantasy rankings, at least, they're a little lower than what you might want to expect. But again, with context, you may want to vault them up. But that's enough about the Las Vegas Aces because, again, we know what to expect out of them. Let's talk about the 4th team, the New York Liberty. And the reason why they're ahead of the Aces, because keep in mind, too, they have 4 players in the top 50. Like I said, the Aces have 2 players in the top 10. The Liberty have 3 players in the top 10. One of them was Finals MVP in Jonquel Jones. And then we got Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart. And then you got to talk about Benaje Laney. That's a quality 4 players right there. Sometimes you can say it don't get much better because it really don't. It's very tough to beat that 4-woman roster, even with the Aces. Anybody would hate to go up against this squad. The Liberty, though, I am surprised they don't have more because they do have quality players on the team, too. Their depth was always a concern for me. So I would be curious to see if these rankings mean that they're still top-heavy. That's very curious for me. Same with the Aces. The Liberty and Aces, I'm curious if they're going to be top-heavy once again. We have seen them win while being viewed as top-heavy, but depth does matter, though. So hopefully somebody in their depth can crack the top 50. Again, it's tough to crack the top 50, but hopefully somebody can. At least in the top 50 rankings. Maybe not WNBA fantasy rankings, but at least in the WNBA rankings as a whole. But we know the defending champs. We know what they can do. So it's not like I'm saying, oh, they're losing. I'm surprised that they're number 4. But speaking of number 4, let's move on up to number 3, who's my most surprising team, regardless of where I'm talking. And that's, in fact, my Los Angeles Sparks. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 5 players listed in the top 50. We got 1 player in the top 10, which is Kelsey Plum. Keep in mind, I have my gripes about Kelsey Plum and acquiring Kelsey Plum because, well, you know, I'm a Paige Beckers fan as well, too. So I did want us to get Paige Beckers. I hate the fact that we had to settle for Kelsey Plum. I said it. And that's no slight to Kelsey Plum. She's a good player, obviously. The fact that we got 5 players is pretty cool. And then you got to think, too, what does that ultimately mean? Because fantasy rankings don't necessarily mean we're going to win. They just mean these are the fantasy rankings. But Kelsey Plum, I like that. Paired with Rakia Jackson, that could work. Paired with De'Erica Hamby, all right, cool. Paired with Cameron Brink and Azurá Stevens, I'm starting to like how this lineup looking. Because we do have depth, or we do have height, length, shooting, scoring. We got a lot out there. So, I mean, I wasn't as high on my Sparks until I saw the WNBA fantasy rankings. But keep in mind, too, I got to do my own analysis as well. But you may want to pay attention to my Sparks. We could do some things this year. It might be a little tricky come playoff time who gets booted out because we could be in the thick of things. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I ain't going to hem and haw too much on my Sparks, so y'all might think I'm biased. So let's move from number 3 on to number 2. Now, the top 2 teams actually are very interesting to me. But number 2, I think is a fan favorite for a lot of you casuals out there because it is, in fact, the Indiana Fever. Now, they obviously boast 5 players, and 2 of them are in the top 11. We know who one of the number 2 is, right? Which is Caitlin Clark. She's, in fact, number 2 in terms of WNBA fantasy rankings. Aaliyah Edwards is also the other person. Now, keep in mind, they got DeWanna Bonner. They also got Kelsey Mitchell. And they got Natasha Howard. So they do have a squad, ladies and gentlemen. Like the Fever are looking nice. And you got to pay attention to them. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, yeah, they're going to win it all this year. Caitlin Clark's going to cut down her turnovers. She's going to be the MVP, all this stuff. Let's see what happens. I'm very curious how this season goes because a lot of things could shake out. But overall, from the WNBA fantasy rankings, as well as the acquisitions and on paper and all that stuff, Indiana Fever look nice. They look cool. Like, I get why people feel the way they do and say what they say. I understand it. So that's why I say we'll see. It's not I doubt it. It's a genuinely we'll see. Like, I'm very curious how this season pans out. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Indiana Fever, you got to pay attention to them. But the last team, number 1 team, the team with the most players in the WNBA fantasy ranking, the Atlanta Dream. The Atlanta Dream are a somewhat scary team for me, ladies and gentlemen. And I say somewhat not to be disrespectful, but I say somewhat because of my own history. Keep in mind, I've said before the Dallas Wings and Seattle Storm were going to do work. They did well. I was saying in the realms of potentially winning a championship, there was a world where they could have won. And I view the Atlanta Dream in a similar way, maybe not as strongly, but still in a similar way too, though. based on their acquisitions, right? They did just acquire Brittany Griner. They also have Ryan Howard and Alicia Gray. So you have arguably the most physically dominant player in the game, plus 2 elite two-way wings. If we were talking basketball, bro, how are y'all losing? So again, I look at them in a similar breath, and keep in mind they have more players in the top 50 fantasy rankings. They're a complete team. Are they too young? We'll find out. Is the timing a little off? We'll find out. But again, this Atlanta Dream Team, ladies and gentlemen, boasting 6 players. You got to pay attention to them. They give me the same vibes that I got when I saw the Dallas Wings form 2 years ago, and then Seattle Storm form last year. Now, again, keep in mind, if you want to say, oh, both of those teams lost, I hear you. I do. Still, they seem like a quality team, and I'm going to be curious how they do in this season. This might be the team I pay attention to the most, honestly, because they have the most potential. But I'm not going to hem and haw too much about the Dream, because again, I'll give my final predictions before the season starts. That way, y'all know, okay, what he's talking about. He's seen the fantasy rankings, and you got my final predictions. But ladies and gentlemen, y'all heard my top 5. Y'all heard all the teams in terms of where they're ranked. Y'all heard my most surprises. I'm curious about you guys. What do y'all think about the WNBA fantasy rankings? Do y'all think based on the teams, it doesn't matter? Do y'all think it matters a little bit? Was there a team that was most surprising to you? I'm definitely curious about your thoughts. So make sure to comment, but also please like, subscribe, and tell anyone about the show. My name is Trey. I'm the host of Get a Bucket. Hope you all are having a good one. Make sure you watch the WNBA season, and take care.